President Kiir calls on the displaced persons in the UN camps to return home and build their lives. South Sudan celebrates the International Day of Peace. And Vice President Hossein Abdelbagi participates in a meeting to transform education in Africa. Hello and welcome. I am Abraham Aken. You're watching SSBC News Hour coming to you live in the national capital, Juba. We thank you for joining us. President Kiir and traditional leaders discussed the plight of the displaced persons in the UN protection of civilian camps in Juba. They discussed the need to move them out to residential areas. During the meeting, the traditional leaders raised a number of issues, such as lack of water, education and health services. The traditional leaders said they are ready to move out of the camps and requested the president to designate them a piece of land in Central Equatorial State for settlement. In his remarks, President Kiir called on the displaced persons to return home and build their lives. Speaking to the media, Paramount Chief Thomas Tut thanked the president for accepting their call for resettlement in Central Equatorial State. Tut called on the chief in the displaced camps to encourage their people to return to their areas of origin to rebuild their lives.
The topic that they have discussed with His Excellency is for them to move out from the POCs. And for them to move out, they will need a designated area for residents. We are very happy and we are appreciating the meeting between the chiefs and His Excellency. And this is the first time for the chief in POC to meet the president.
ورسالة ده طلب بتاع الشعب رئيس وقبلوا نحن مبسوطين نحن سلاطين لأنه طلب بتاعنا رئيس يردوا ونشكر الرئيس والنواب بتاعه ونشكر حكومة بتاع جنوب السودان لأنه قبل طلب بتاعنا نحن سلاطين ونحن دايرين نازل في مكيمات في ملكال وفي بنتيو وفي واو وفي جنجولة ده وقت ربنا جاب سلام ورئيس واقف مع سلام. طلب بتاعنا ده رئيس بس معنا في POC كليم ركبرة نحن قابلنا عقدنا رئيس الليلة السلام ده وقعوا وما برجع تاني ما برجعوا لمشاكل ونشكر الرئيس شديد.
President Kiir and the advanced team of General Johnson Olony discussed the security situation in Upper Nile State. The meeting also discussed the implementation of peace agreement between SPLM and the SPLM-IO Kidguang group led by General Simon Gedwich. The president expressed concern about the insecurity in Malakal caused by fighting between Kidguang factions led by General Simon Gedwich and by forces of General Johnson Olony in Upper Nile State. They also discussed the flooding in parts of Upper Nile State.
Actually, the meeting was about the implementation of the peace which has been signed by the government and the Kidguang section. We discussed with His Excellency the President and we requested his intervention, that he should intervene and discuss this issue with the first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar, since the White Army is under his territory and it is his concern. So the President was very positive and promised that he will be talking to Dr. Riek Machar on this issue. And also, we all of us condemn to the stronger term the behavior of the White Army when they came and attacked the innocent people who have been displaced and they are under the protection of the government.
استقرار يحصل في ولاية على النيل فبتنفيذ الاتفاقية تم التوقيع عليه بين الحكومة والقيادات الأقولك افتكر إنه ممكن على النيل تكون تأخذ العافية وتكون في سلام حقيقي موجود في منطقة على النيل.
مبسوطين جدا إنه الرئيس بحضور كل الأجهزة الأمنية أكد لنا إنه الاتفاق لازم ينفذ، الأحداث لازم تصل.
And the Minister of East African Community Affairs, Denga Lorpol, who is also the chairperson of ABA, file briefed President Kiir on his mission to Ethiopia and South Africa to seek support for the final status of ABA. Denga Lorpol said the meeting also discussed finding a permanent solution to ABA issue.
I've just concluded the meeting, our meeting with His Excellency President Salva Kiir Mayardit on the visit of the ABA file to Ethiopia and to South Africa, to explain to them the situation in ABA and the necessity for a final solution. Very much concerned about what is happening in the area, the confusion that is there. So he is making a final position on how to address finally the issue of ABA, and he will make it in the shortest possible time in the near future.
South Sudan joined the rest of the world in celebrating the International Day of Peace. Addressing the occasion, the first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar, described the graduation of the unified forces as an important step towards the implementation of the peace agreement. Dr. Machar called on government institutions and the public to fight ethnic discrimination. John Tabanwani reports.
The government of South Sudan joins the world in celebrating the International Day of Peace. The United Nations calls upon all people to lay down their weapons and reaffirm their commitment to coexist peacefully. The first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar, said the graduation of the unified forces is an important step in the implementation of peace agreement. He points out that when peace reveals in the country, there is a really chance to introduce and realize development projects.
Because with security forces, you consolidate peace. You begin to have faith that peace is there. Many, when they outline challenges, were outlining concerns of security. And that's why we say the security arrangements is the backbone of the peace agreement.
The Minister of Cabinet Affairs, Dr. Martin Iliolomoro, asked the UN and international community to lift arms embargo on South Sudan.
We cannot achieve peace with arms embargo imposed on us. And so, if this day is to be fruitful, if this day is to be meaningful, I call on all UN agencies working in South Sudan, including UNIS and the Troika, to take the message of the President that the embargo must be lifted in line with the request of African Union and IGAD region.
UNMISS representative Guang Shang urged all South Sudanese to silence the guns across the country.
On today's International Day of Peace, I urge all South Sudanese to silence the guns, stand up against prejudice and the hatred, and recognize that in your diversity lies your greatest strength. I reassure you that UNMISS continues to be your partner for peace.
On the commemoration of the International Day of Peace, the Ministry's building is calling upon all South Sudanese to dismantle structures, systems, and practices that promote ethnic discrimination, hate speech, and violence. All must work together to build peace through applying non-violence, dialogue, reconciliation, and to achieve social cohesion and develop South Sudan, according to Undersecretary of the Ministry of Peacebuilding, Pierre Philip Michael.
In South Sudan, Your Excellency, ethnic discrimination has become a sharp driver of conflict. Therefore, one of the key objectives of this event today is to create public awareness about the dangers of ethnic division and the importance of embracing unity in diversity to build durable peace in our beautiful republic. We believe that we can still work to dismantle the structures that entrench ethnic discrimination in our midst and support movements for equality and human rights in every part of our nation.
The civil society organization Women Bloc asked political leaders to avoid fueling intercommunal conflicts and instead to improve salaries for the military and organized forces. Despite the signing of the revitalized peace agreement for the resolution of conflict in the country, there is insecurity in some parts of the country. But the graduation of the first batch of the necessary unified forces in Juba in August has light hope for lasting peace and security in South Sudan. John Tabanwani, SSBC, Juba.
The Bishop of Tumbra and Yambio Catholic Dioceses, Eduardo Iboro, called on South Sudanese to consolidate peace in their hearts. Bishop Iboro said peace can be achieved through believing in God. Bishop Iboro spoke to SSBC in Yambio on the World Peace Day.
Peace is like an ideal. How do we achieve total peace? We can only achieve it in the Lord, but we can work on those things that can keep us peaceful. And that is on ourselves. Peace from within. It is what you have from within you that you can give out. If you have peace within you, you will give that peace out. Let us work on how to consolidate and how to include this peace within ourselves, within our way of doing things. And that begins in the family. That begins in the family. All of us in the family has to live this peace. And that goes all the way to our institutions and to wherever we work.
The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the crisis in Ukraine and the global financial situation are a threat to developing countries. The UN chief was addressing the UN General Assembly in New York.
The world is in big trouble. Divides are growing deeper, inequalities are growing wider, and challenges are spreading farther. Let's have no illusions. We are in rough seas. A winter of global discontent is on the horizon. A cost of living crisis is raging, trust is crumbling, inequalities are exploding, and our planet is burning. People are hurting, with the most vulnerable suffering the most. The United Nations Charter and the ideals it represents are in jeopardy. We have a duty to act, and yet we are gridlocked in colossal global dysfunction. The international community is not ready or willing to tackle the big, dramatic challenges of our age. This crisis threatens the very future of humanity and the fate of our planet. Crises like the war in Ukraine and the multiplication of conflicts around the globe, climates like the climate emergency and biodiversity loss, crises like the dire financial situation of developing countries and the fate of the Sustainable Development Goals, and crises like the lack of guardrails around promising new technologies to heal disease, connect people, and expand opportunity.
Let's move again to New York, where South Sudan and Indonesia have signed a document to establish diplomatic relations between the two countries. In a separate development, Vice President Hussein Abdel-Bagher Akol participated in an AU meeting to transform education in Africa. African head of states and governments attended the meeting in New York. Our reporter Mathiang Joseph has more from New York.
A high-level sideline event conducted by African Union on transforming education in Africa at the margins of the Global Transforming Education Summit at 77th session of the UN General Assembly gave African leaders and stakeholders to highlight problems and solutions around education. Global statistics suggested that there are more than 240 million children out of school, with a big chunk from Africa. The head of government delegation to New York, Vice President Hussein Abdel-Baghi reiterated his response to transforming education system by urging the African Union and heads of state and government to prioritize quality education and fight literacy for the continent to progress. With 2.8 million children out of school in South Sudan, Vice President Hussein Abdel-Baghi said South Sudan has increased its annual education budget from 7% to 15% as a way of improving education system that advances school enrollment rate, as well as to improve teachers' welfare for effective learning in the country. Vice President Hussein Abdel-Baghi also updated the event about the extension of the transitional period for 24 months and recent graduation of the unified forces, as well as the need for the Union to support and recognize the 2013 results of a BA referendum, appealing to both UN and AU to support the government in resolving intercommunal violence in the country, particularly the cessation of hostilities agreement signed in Awil and the upcoming Twitch and Ngog Dinka Peace Conference. In other news, South Sudan and Indonesia have signed an agreement of establishing diplomatic mission between the two countries. The Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Deng Dawdeng, signed on behalf of government of South Sudan, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Reno LP Marsudi, on behalf of Indonesia, a move that will illuminate investment opportunities in infrastructure, oil and mining sectors.
We have achieved a very important partner that will move with us, particularly in the area of economic cooperation. And South Sudan is an area that has a lot of potential in terms of infrastructure, oil and economic development.
That we have a good start today, and Indonesia is committed to continue working together with you to strengthen the bilateral relation, in particular the economic cooperation.
The signing was witnessed by the National Minister of Investment, Dr. Bien Mathugding, and Deputy Minister of Finance, Agok Makur, among other technical team. Informative edition of SSBC, I am Mathiang Joseph, New York, United States of America.
The Vice President for Infrastructure Cluster, Taban Dengai, witnessed the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding on transport services between South Sudan's Ministry of Transport and Djibouti Ports and Free Zone Authority. Under the memorandum, Djibouti Port and Free Zone Authority would invest in river ports and train the staff of the Ministry of Transport on ports management and logistics. Nazario Marcelo reports from Djibouti.
In an effort to connect South Sudan to Djibouti, in order to access ports of Djibouti for importation and exportation of goods, as well as easing movement of people between the two countries, South Sudan and Djibouti signed a Memorandum of Understanding between the Ministry of Transport and Djibouti Ports and Free Zone Authority. Minister Maudud Biariel signed on behalf of South Sudan, and Chairman of Djibouti Ports and Free Zone Authority, Abubakar Omar Haddi, on behalf of Djibouti government.
And South Sudan is actually interested to use the port of Djibouti on several issues that will also benefit the country of Djibouti and the people of Djibouti, because South Sudan also is endowed with a lot of resources that will actually be for the common benefit of the
According to the memorandum, Djibouti Ports and Free Zone Authority would train South Sudan officials on river port management and logistics, as well as investing in port industry in South Sudan, in addition of easing importation and exportation of goods into South Sudan.
The purpose of coming here to Djibouti to sign an MOU is actually to cooperate and encourage the authorities of Djibouti port to invest in the Republic of South Sudan and also to help train our people in South Sudan on river ports, Great Nile, and also to help in opening the channels from areas along the Nile by our partner here in Djibouti, and that is also a national highway that will benefit the two countries. Like Djibouti now along the Red Sea is also endowed by a national highway. This also we have another sphere to come and develop our river ports in South Sudan.
The move came in a way of finding additional gateway for exportation and importation of goods, as well as movement of people between the two countries.
Our effort is going to be materialized today, from now on. So we are working with the Ministry of Infrastructure in South Sudan on development of river ports, connecting road and railways to South Sudan, not only to make Djibouti a hub, but also to make South Sudan a transit country for other landlocked countries. So there are a lot of business opportunities between the two countries that South Sudan would benefit. We are ready also to provide the training here, very wise decision from the government of South Sudan to build a pipeline going to the east. The more economical, and the oil fields are located in the northern parts of South Sudan. Bentiu and the other area. So it's more economical, it's about business, and Djibouti government and people have always supported.
It is worth mentioning that Djibouti is geographically near to the northern parts of South Sudan than other ports the country is using for importation and exportation of goods. Nazario Marcello, SSBC.
Let's go for a break and we shall be back with more stories.
South Sudan is faced with a national disaster. As a result of climate change, the country is flooded. The whole country is flooded. Many families are living in a vulnerable situation. We call on all those who could extend a helping hand to do so. We are calling on the NGOs, the UN agencies, the civil society, and good-hearted South Sudanese to extend a helping hand to those families, the vulnerable one that has been hit by floods. We keep moving from one place to the other, but they find no hiding place. Of course, they need a place to lay their head down. Floods has affected the entire country. Climate change is a reality.
President Kiir calls on the displaced persons in the UN camps to return home and rebuild their lives. South Sudan celebrates the International Day of Peace. And Vice President Hossein Abdelbagi participates in a meeting to transform education in Africa. Welcome back. Speaker Jemanunu Kumba met with traditional leaders from Mundri West, Mundri East, and the traditional leaders congratulated President Kiir for appointing Jemanunu Kumba as the first female speaker in the country. They also thanked President Kiir for launching road projects in the country, which they said was a promise by SPLM during the liberation struggle.
Later a message to the right honorable speaker together with the president, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, for actually appointing the Honorable Jemanunu Kumba to be the first woman speaker in South Sudan. The community is actually very pleased with that, and they are wishing the president to do more than this, because Greater Mondere was one of the towns that has been earlier captured by the SPLM, and the contribution made by the people is still living up to today. So our people thought that it should be wise for them, if their daughter is already promoted, and it was a process of realization of governor of the good governance, they have to come and congratulate her. The community also
مناسب وحاجة أنا داير نتكلم لكنه وده العصا ماسي في 3 كانتيات مندريس مندروس ومبولو تدمير كامل من مطر يعني بيت كله كسر ناس بيقى قاعدين في مدارس قاعدين في كنائس وهنا بنطالب ينو مساعدات بهي طريقة يساعدوا ناس المواطنين ديبو كان سواكل ولا مسامات لأنه وده بيقى صعب سويا مسك تاعي أنا بنقول إنه للشعب بتاعنا تا جنوب السودان سو كل ما بكين قالين براو لرئيس ولا ليزول أنا ما مواطنين كله أنا كريسا مال في مواطن كان برا في أسبرا والفي جوبا كرين نساعده.
The Speaker of the Council of States, Deng Akon, returned to Juba after participating in a 2-day conference in the Burundian capital, Bujumbura. The conference, organized for Arab and African parliamentarians and Shura Council Association, focused on the impact of coronavirus and Russian-Ukraine war. Speaking to SSBC at Juba International Airport, legislator Fiji Modi said the conference also discussed the impact of coronavirus on the Arab and African economies.
The resolution of the conference was that all the Afro-Arab governments and parliaments must work together to minimize the impact of these two issues on their people. Secondly, it was decided that this type of conference must be organized and opted for the senators of Afro-Arab countries.
The Minister of Presidential Affairs, Dr. Barnaba Muriel Benjamin, met with the UK Special Envoy for South Sudan and Sudan, Robert Fairweather, in London. Dr. Muriel said they also discussed bilateral cooperation and the peace process in both Sudan and South Sudan. The meeting also discussed strengthening cooperation and commitment among the signatories to embrace peace. The meeting also called on the necessity to bring all non-signatories on board for a comprehensive peace in the country. Robert Fairweather thanked South Sudan for participating at the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. Ambassador Agnes Osoa attended the meeting.
Nice meeting in order to share bilateral issues, talk about peace in South Sudan, and also peace, the role of South Sudan in bringing peace in the Sudan. And I send the message of thanks and appreciation for the wonderful attendance, where we pass the message of our sympathies and condolences on behalf of President Kiir, his government, and the people of South Sudan, to the British people and the royal family, and also to pass the congratulations for King Charles III.
We thank not only the Minister, but President Kiir and all the people of South Sudan who have been so generous and warm in passing on their condolences in the passing of Queen Elizabeth. As I say, the Minister and I have had a very good conversation this afternoon. It's so important that the UK and South Sudan continues to work together, as the Minister says, for peace and stability in South Sudan, and we've arranged to catch up the next.
The National Minister of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, Aya Benjamin Warile, the World Bank and UN Women discussed establishing a center in Wau to empower women. Governor Sarah Cleto Asen said they would support the project to establish the center until it is completed. The State Minister of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, Christina Gabriel Ali, said the project includes capacity building for women.
We had discussions around the 7 million project with 4 components, and our engagement was around the construction of Women's Center in Wau. We are very excited with the excitement from the state. We've gotten even assurance from them, the support to implement this project. We call upon all the stakeholders to support this project so that we can realize it.
The government in the state, we promise our support. We're going to be standing together with the project and ensure that the project is implemented. The project period is to be completed within 4 years, but we hope that with all our supporters, the people of Western Barakazal, we want to ensure that the project materialize. Our first contribution is a piece of land that belongs to the Ministry of the State Minister of Gender.
يمكن من ال10 ولايات المختارة، وإحنا أول ولاية هم يجوا عشان يجمعوا مننا المعلومات. فالاهتمام ما بيخص الوزراء بس، إن شاء الله بكرة هيكون في consultative meeting مع الكوميونيتيز، والحمد لله هنا.
The Minister of Culture, Museum and National Heritage, Dr. Nadia Robdudi, inspected Marialbai Model Farm in Western Bahr-el-Ghazal State. In a statement to SSBC, the State Minister of Animal Resources and Fisheries, Agustino Fatir, said the project will empower and train students of the Faculty of Veterinary in Western Bahr-el-Ghazal University.
فيها نظام بتاع العلف وتربية الحيوانات وبيشمل الزراعة وبخش الأسماك، وغطت لنا كل الجوانب بتاعت الوزارة، ومن خلاله بتضامن مع كلية البيطرية في جامعة بار-غزال برضو الطلبة هيستفيدوا من هذا المشروع في تمكين وتدريب الطلبة في كل المحاور اللي أنا ذكرته،
ونستفيد منها في زراعة المحاصيل الشتوية وفي فترة بتاعت الجفاف، وخاصة إنه الولاية تتعرض للفيضانات، ويمكن ده اتجاه بالنسبة لنا إنه نتجه نحو الزراعة الشتوية في فترات بتاعت الجفاف في المحاصيل الأساسية التي تنعدم في الولاية، وده يمكن يساعد سكان المنطقة والولايات المجاورة بها.
وممكن يتزرع في أي محصول سواء كان الخضروات أو محاصيل زراعية، الناس بتستفيد منها استفادة قصوى، فإحنا بنفتكر أنه دي يعني فكرة جميلة وتجربة حديثة وجديدة بالنسبة لنا إحنا، ونتمنى أنه.
The Deputy Minister of Information, Communication Technology and Postal Services, Dr. Jacob Majukrok, and the British Child Affairs Gil Lever discussed preparations for the Planetary Conference due to take place this month. The meeting also discussed South Sudan's support to the United Kingdom's candidates to the International Telecommunications Union Council. The Ministry Under-Secretary for Telecom Sector, Dr. Lado Wani Kinyi, said the Deputy Minister of Information pledged South Sudan's support to the United Kingdom.
We came to talk about South Sudan's priorities in the area of digital and telecommunications, and the Honourable Minister explained to us that connectivity is the absolute key issue for South Sudan and for the people. 80% of the population do not have access to the internet or to the mobile phone network, and so the vision for the country is really to improve connectivity, and we would like to support countries around the world, by membership of the ITU Council with these priorities. And we ask the Honourable Deputy Minister for his support and for South Sudan's vote for the UK as a member of the ITU Council when that vote takes place next month.
They came to solicit for the support of the government of South Sudan for their candidature to the position of the Council of the ITU. Also during the meeting, we discussed the priorities of South Sudan. Of course, South Sudan, with all the indicators, is lowest in all the ICT indicators in the world, and we told them what are our priorities and what we are going to follow up with the British embassy here for assistance after the PPU 22 meeting in Bucharest. The meeting was cordial, and the government of South Sudan, of course, has all a strategy of how to support the countries. The British government is one of the friendly countries, and the deputy minister has promised that they will be supporting the British government to be.
Ambassador Garang Ding presented his credentials to the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan said he is committed to work with the ambassadors to strengthen relations with their respective countries. Ambassador Garang said he would promote the relations and cooperation between South Sudan and the United Arab Emirates. And finally, the East African Legislative Assembly held a public hearing on the Regional Customs Management Bill to seek South Sudan's interest on the control of goods and commodity flow in the region. Legislator Gideon Gatpan said the bill needs some amendments to suit national interest of partner states.
We are discussing a bill entitled the East African Community Customs Management Act 2022. This bill has got 30 clauses that need to be amended. The Customs Management Act 2004 is an act of parliament of the East African Community that has been operationalized, and it is operationalizing also the East African Community Customs Union Protocol. So this is a bill which is very important. It touches the heart of our integration. So we are here today to discuss and find consensus on clauses, 30 clauses. Already we have tackled 4 clauses, so we remain with the 26 clauses that we have to be discussing, including this afternoon.
As members of Committee for Regional Integration, and specifically the Subcommittee for East African Community, we are very happy that we are going to share our knowledge, and the interest of our people, of course, is on the top, and issues that are coming up here and there, related to the East African community and our participation in the East African community. In this junction, we would like to say that we are going to make sure that the interest of our people is captured specifically in the issue to do with this amendment, Bill 2022.
With that, we have come to the end of our news. From me, Abraham Aken, and the whole team here, we thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.
Chijitara la manaka, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. Chamatai nyong 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 chamatai nyong nyong chamatai shilo jate nyong chamatai nyong nyong chamatai nyong 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 chamatai nyong nyong chamatai shilo jate nyong chamatai nyong
Ashana celebrate.